Well, hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday from the J.M. Kaplan Fund. Thanks so much for joining us today for this informational webinar about the 2023 J.M.K. Innovation Prize. My name is Justin Goldbach, and I'm the program director of the prize. And it's my pleasure to be joined today by Betsy Davidson, a trustee of the J.M. Kaplan Fund.
Hello, everyone.
And by Diya Abdo, founder, director, and president of every campus of Refuge.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here.
Thanks, Diya. Thanks, Betsy. Diya is a 2021 Innovation Prize awardee, and we are so excited that she's here with us today to share her experience as an awardee on today's webinar. So before we dive in, I'd like to go over a couple housekeeping notes related to the webinar technology we're using today. First, today's webinar is available in Spanish. So to access the live translation, click on the global icon at the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Automated captions are also available by clicking on the CC icon at the bottom. You've been muted for the duration of the webinar. We've done this to minimize noise and to streamline the program for having such a big group today. And instead of speaking, you're encouraged to communicate with us by typing your message in the chat box that you see at the bottom of your screen. And to that point, we reserve plenty of time at the end of this webinar for your questions, but do feel free to submit your questions to us throughout today's presentation. Our team is online monitoring the Q&A panel and chat at the bottom of your screen. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible, but may not have time to get to all of them today, seeing as there are hundreds of people here today. If we fail to get to your question, please feel free to email me directly after the webinar. I'll share my email address at the end of this presentation. Finally, if you need to drop off at some point, no worries at all. A recording of today's webinar will be posted to the fund's website within the next couple of days and distributed to all the registrants of today's session. So today's webinar is really intended to provide an overview of the J.M.K. Innovation Prize. We plan to introduce the fund itself and explain how this prize fits into the fund's broader philanthropic mission. We'll talk about the prize's eligibility criteria, address details of the application and selection processes, and hear from Diya about her experience as a recipient of the prize. And finally, we'll leave plenty of time for questions and answers. Please note that there may be a separate webinar for our wonderful external reviewers who participate in the prize's signature review process with 500+ volunteer readers. This webinar is mainly for prospective applicants. That said, if you're here as a reviewer today, I'd encourage you to stay with us for helpful context, but know that we'll not be digging into the review process on today's webinar. With that, let's begin. And Betsy, over to you.
Thanks, Justin. I'd like to start by introducing the J.M. Kaplan Fund, a nearly 80-year-old family foundation based in New York City. On the left is an image of our founder, J.M. Kaplan, Jacob Merrill, and his wife, Alice, my grandfather and grandmother. For those of you new to the fund, it was J.M.'s extraordinary success as a businessman, especially in the agricultural sector, that resulted in the creation of the fund. My grandfather purchased a small, struggling grape business in Western New York State and built it into what came to be known around the world as the Welch's Grape Juice Company. He sold the company to the grape growers, creating an early and important model of cooperative corporate ownership and creating the capital that launched the foundation. J.M. took on many legendary causes, including the fight to save Carnegie Hall, the first legal protections for people impacted by homelessness in New York City, and the effort to build the New School. For 3 decades after his leadership, the fund was led by Joan Davidson, my mother, J.M.'s eldest daughter. Joan, my mother, grew the foundation into a fully staffed grant-making enterprise. Her passion for all things New York, its environment, history, and people, led to numerous important early-stage grants, including the first grants to create park conservancies, including Central Park, Prospect Park, and the High Line, the fight to protect Broadway theaters, a demonstration of green markets in the city, and many others. Today, the foundation continues to be led by us, direct descendants of JM, and many of my family members and I are pictured in this picture. And we are actively engaged in three primary areas of grant making: the environment, with a focus on climate change, heritage conservation, and social justice, with a focus on strengthening democracy and reforming the criminal justice and immigration systems. In 2015, the fund launched our inaugural J.M.K. Innovation Prize in honor of our founders' passion and success in investing early in outstanding leaders with new and innovative ideas. And that's what brings us to today's discussion. So with that, I'd now like to pass this back to Justin to talk more about the creation of the prize.
Thanks so much, Betsy. So building on this legacy of smart risk-taking, the fund launched the J.M.K. Innovation Prize in 2015 to place informed bets on ideas in their earliest stages of development. We envision making one of the first significant investments in promising organizations and making the funding multi-year to give the founders runway to plan and grow. We also envision providing awardees with the kind of personalized support that most nonprofits don't receive from foundations. And just as importantly, creating a cohort experience where social innovators from across the country could learn from one another. We were blown away when we received over 1,000 applications from 45 of 50 states, as well as Puerto Rico and the US Virgin Islands in that first year of running the prize. So we repeated the prize in 2017, 2019, and continued to get more and more applications. And in 2021, our last prize cycle, we received well over 2,500 applications from all 50 states, as well as from numerous US territories and native tribes. So I'll tell you more about how we review all of these applications and select awardees later on in today's webinar. So as Betsy mentioned, the fund's grant-making focuses in three areas: the environment, heritage conservation, and social justice. We have program directors in each of these areas of work, my colleagues, who work closely with our trustees to establish funding priorities and strategies. And while the prize seeks new, early-stage, innovative projects focused on these topics and related work, the prize does not replace these more traditional grant-making approaches. Rather, we think the prize as an extremely complementary effort, giving our trustees and staff an opportunity to hear from the field directly, to learn from and support people on the ground closest to the critical challenges we are facing across our country. So here we are in 2023, and this is our 5th time running the program. Betsy, can you believe it's our 5th time doing that? So as in all of our past rounds, the 2023 prize will again award up to 10 prizes, each offering $50,000 per year for 3 years and a $25,000 bank of funds available for technical assistance at any time over that 3-year period. Just as importantly, the fund staff provides significant non-monetary support to these innovators, including annual awardee convenings, in which awardees learn from each other and outside subject matter experts to provide both individualized coaching and group workshops that aim to lift all boats. I'll ask Diya to talk about her experience in just a moment. So in 2023, we at the fund are again looking for projects in their earliest stages of development, doing work that innovate within the fields of the environment, heritage conservation, and/or social justice, or some combination of those three, offering a game-changing solution to a clearly identified problem, that show potential for an actionable pilot or prototype with the prize funding, are scalable or applicable beyond the initial pilot and support from the fund, and have the potential to benefit multiple individuals, communities, or sectors. In terms of geographic eligibility, generally speaking, an organization needs to be based in the United States to be eligible. The door is open for non-US based programs if there's a compelling case that the impact of this work could significantly benefit those in the United States. In 2015, only nonprofits, including those organizations or individuals with fiscal sponsors, were eligible for the prize. But in 2017, we expanded our purview to also accept applications from mission-driven for-profit entities. We did this because we've seen lots of exciting social innovation taking place within organization structures that are hybridized and don't neatly fit in the nonprofit bucket. So in 2023, we remain committed to the idea that socially focused for-profit organizations can require philanthropic seed capital to become economically viable in the marketplace. So to be clear, in the case the for-profit should win the prize, the fund would not expect an equity stake in the company, but would instead provide the organization with philanthropic grants, just as we do with nonprofits. I don't know about you, but I feel like I've been talking forever. So I'm now pleased to pass the mic to the fabulous Diya Abdo, who will share her perspective on the prize as an actual recipient of the award in 2021. Diya, over to you.
Thank you so much, Justin. And you know that you can talk forever and we would never be bored. And also, I've been on Zoom for the last 3 years. This is the first time I've been on a Zoom with this many people on it. I feel like my computer is overheating, but how is it possible? It's a testament, of course, to the fund and the wonderful work that it's doing. So as Justin said, my name is Diya Abdo. I am a professor at Guilford College in Greensboro, North Carolina, and the founder and director of a program called Every Campus a Refuge. And Every Campus a Refuge was founded in 2015. I was inspired by Pope Francis, who, in responding to the Syrian refugee crisis at the time, called on every parish in Europe to host a refugee family. And a very simple idea occurred to me. A college or university is exactly like a parish, a small city, capable of hosting refugees and supporting them in their integration. And so we began hosting refugees on Guilford's campus in faculty housing, and the effort has spread over the last 8 years to nearly now 17 campuses, who last year alone hosted and supported the integration of 350 refugees. I learned about the prize through an email from a colleague, and of course it seemed like a wonderful opportunity. And I'm lucky enough to be working at Guilford College, where I have lots of colleagues with lots of different kinds of expertise. A colleague of ours helped us with the grant application. She was actually on sabbatical at the time and wanted to support ICAR. So I think one of the tips that I have is lean on the expert grant writers in your circle and see who might be able to support you in that effort. We also worked really hard on crafting that video, that, saying everything that we can in that limited amount of time really trained us to be able to deliver our message carefully and succinctly. As you know, this is generous multi-year funding, and for us it was pivotal because it allowed us to think sustainably and long-term about much needed staffing support. I was doing ICAR on a volunteer basis, and I had someone who was super part-time. And so to be able to do this work sustainably with sustained and reliable staff support, we also wanted to do this ethically. We wanted to be able to hire somebody for a while and offer them a job that was secure for 2 or 3 years, and that's what we're doing. But in addition to that amazing multi-year funding, there's that technical assistance, which has come in so handy for us, right? It meant that we could focus the multi-year funding on supporting staffing and programming, but we use the tech funds for a variety of things like accounting, legal fees, insurance, software licensing, technology office supplies. One of the things that I will say is that the funding, if you can believe it, is actually the least amazing part of this opportunity. And I say this to Justin every time I see him. I can say without exaggerate, it's not an exaggeration, that what J.M.K. has built for me and my cohort is a family and a community. They have supported me when my book launched. They supported us with the ICAR gathering. They have connected us with other funders. They have supported us through Rex's expertise with our branding, through Tony's expertise with our fundraising, with exposure. They sponsored our conference workshop on tabling at a recent conference in UMass Amherst. And most importantly, it's such a genuine and authentic experience that we're having as a cohort. All of our meetings have been truly deeply informational. I get golden advice every time I attend one of the cohort meetings. I learn things in those meetings that I don't learn in any other space, and that really transform how I lead the organization, how I fundraise, how I think about board membership, about stakeholder and partnership development. One of the memorable experiences for me is our convening in Morganton. Our last convening was in Morganton in North Carolina. And I connected so deeply with that past awardee that they actually invited me back, and I did a book reading in Morganton, and they came and they all showed up and showed out, which was wonderful. I do want to end on saying that there's immense prestige, of course, in being a J.M.K. awardee. It's really put us on the radar of other funders and partners, stakeholders in our space. It's been a wonderful experience. I can't say enough about it. Thanks so much for having me, Justin.
Oh, Diya, thank you so much. I'm blushing here, even though I'm off camera. Diya's work is so impressive and so important, and we are so honored at the J.M. Kaplan Fund to be in Diya's corner to see this thing continue to grow. If you imagine every campus in the United States and beyond hosting just one refugee family, the amount of impact that could be had, the soft landing that these folks could have in the United States, we're really inspired by Diya's work and so honored to support her. So Diya, thank you for being here. We really, really appreciate it. And if you're willing, I'd love for you to stick around. I already see some questions coming in that are directed to you and your experience. So maybe we can pull you back in during the Q&A in a couple minutes. All right, so I encourage everyone on today's call to go to the J.M. Kaplan Fund website and to learn more about Diya's work at every campus of Refuge and all of our other Innovation Prize awardees. You can click on the J.M.K. Innovation Prize tab, and under that is our 2021 awardees, where you'll see Diya and the 9 other projects from that cycle. So I think let's move on then. This slide aims to go a little deeper into the prize's eligibility criteria, which I know many people have already asked about in the chat. So while the prize is designed with openness to brand new ideas and definitions of impact within our focus areas, there are some common types of projects that are just not a good fit for our foundation. And we'd like to advise against applying if any of these are relevant to you. If your organization's sole purpose is development of research, so important, we fund it elsewhere outside of the prize, but that's not what our prize is about. If a project's primary purpose is the promotion of religious doctrine, it's not right for the prize. As you heard from Diya's story, folks that are inspired by their religion to do good work is fabulous and encouraged. But if you're specifically just focusing on religious doctrine, it's not right for the prize. An organization is no longer in an early stage of development is a common one. We'll talk more about what early stage means to us, but we're really looking to be that first significant money into an early stage project. If a program is under the umbrella of a larger organization with no plans to become a standalone entity, it's not right for the Innovation Prize. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. If a project doesn't focus on impacting the United States, you've heard this before, you'll probably hear it once more in this webinar, our prize is domestically focused with few exceptions. Organizations need to be based in the United States or demonstrate impact in the United States to be relevant for the prize. And if a founder has no intention of making his or her organization a full-time commitment, that's also problematic for our prize, which is focused on those that are really dedicating most of their time and trying to tackle that social or environmental issue that they're dealing with through their project. So Betsy and I are now going to spend a couple minutes talking about project types that are in fact ineligible. We're going to go over this a little bit more, sort of repeating this list, but going back and forth and providing more color. So Betsy, if you're up for it, maybe I'll have you go first with the research piece.
Okay, sure. So first, if an organization's sole purpose is the development of research, then it would be ineligible. We've received many high-quality research proposals in the past. This prize, however, seeks action and real-life impact. So it's not to say that a research component of a project wouldn't be welcomed, because of course it would be, but there's got to be action and real-life impact. Yeah,
that's right, Betsy. And then driving home point 2 again, the religious doctrine piece. We welcome applications from organizations with a religious affiliation or bent. You'll see a bunch of those on the prize website, but the primary purpose of the project cannot be evangelizing. Betsy, back to you.
If an organization is no longer at an early stage of development, while there's some flexibility here, we're most interested in organizations that were founded less than 4 years ago. If your organization has millions of dollars in the bank account and dozens of staff members, your organization, it's clearly too mature for this prize, which is really intended for early stage ventures.
That's right. And if a program is under the umbrella of a larger organization with no plans to become a standalone entity. So we fully appreciate that innovation takes place within established organizations. That said, we believe that these small projects within established organizations, if they have merit, can often find easier funding than a brand new project that's not within an established organization. So we will, however, entertain applications for pilot projects within established organizations if there's clear intention for that project to spin out as its own organizational entity.
If a project doesn't focus on the impact within the United States, it will be ineligible. Justin mentioned earlier that generally speaking, an organization must be US based to apply. The nuance here is that your organization may be internationally based if your project your project has a direct impact in the United States, then it would be eligible.
That's right. And lastly, if a founder has no intention of making his or organization a full-time commitment, again, the prize provides general operating support, which sometimes gets used for the founder's salary. And we think that's a great thing. But we want to work with social innovators who are dedicated to their project and spending most of their time on it. So awesome. Thanks for your help, Betsy. Let's move to the next slide. So this is our next to last slide, people. And it is a timeline about the 2023 prize. You'll see that the round one application deadline is the end of next month, the end of April. And you can submit an application through the J.M. Kaplan Fund's website, where there's a link to Foundant, which is the grants management platform that we use. If any questions come up during that period, shoot me an email, we'll figure it out together. You heard a little bit previously about our review process, which is really exciting. And I hope that many of you on today's call will sign up to be a volunteer reviewer. We, in fact, had something close to 500 volunteer reviewers in 2021. So what we do is we take those thousands of applications, we take the hundreds of reviewers, and we randomly assign them to one another so that each application is seen by sometimes up to 10 different pairs of eyes. We average out the scores, we do a little math, and then we ordinarily rank those applications from highest scoring to lowest scoring. And approximately 15% of applicants then are invited to a round two application, which is much more like a traditional grant application. That first round application, we hope, isn't taking more than an hour of your time. It's meant to be very light touch and really just ask, who are you, what are you doing, and why are you uniquely qualified to do this thing? The round two application asks more about obstacles to you doing your work, budgets, things like that you'd expect from a traditional grant application. That second round application will be due on July 14th and reviewed by 2 subject matter experts. We have about 34 subject matter experts that we divide up applications to, and we ask those subject matter experts to work in pairs. So they both have to put their stamp of sort of legitimacy on those ideas to be able to advance in our process. In round 3, we're down to about 60 or so applications. The staff and trustees of the Kaplan Fund are doing interviews with those folks. We're doing deep dives into referencing. And finally, 15 finalists are flown out to a board meeting in person in New York City that happens in September. Of course, COVID permitting, God forbid something like that happens again, to meet with the trustees. And of the 15 projects that are represented there, 10 are selected as awardees of the J.M.K. Innovation Prize. And then we publicly announce and celebrate our awardees in November with videos, with press releases and the like, to make sure that we all get the biggest splash, the biggest bang for the buck out of announcing these awardees to the general public. So moving on, we find the Innovation Prize incredibly exciting, and I hope you felt that today. I hope you feel inspired to get involved in some way.
That's right, Justin. And at the end of the day, we're a relatively small family foundation, and we rely on the generosity of you all, our network, to make this happen.
Yeah, that's right, Betsy. So beyond applying, which of course we encourage all of you to do if you're eligible, here are 3 ways you can get involved. 1, we ask for your help with spreading the word broadly with your professional and personal networks. And if you're super hip, this is not me, use social media with the hashtag #JMK Innovation Prize or a Twitter handle @the JMK Fund. 2, while we don't accept nominations per se, there is a question in the round 1 application in which applicants can optionally state who referred them to the prize. We encourage those with kind of a personal connection to encourage the applicants to add your name there. That just lets us know where those applicants heard about us. 3, Volunteer to be a round one smart generalist volunteer. I talked about this on the previous slide. The feedback we receive from our reviewers in a post-prize survey is always exceptional. People love this experience and getting a taste of social innovation taking place across our country. This takes approximately 6 hours of your time. And if you received this email about the webinar today, please be on the lookout for another email in the coming weeks that has a link to the registration form to be a reviewer. Please know you can be both an applicant and a reviewer. We have a back-end process to ensure that there aren't conflicts of interest. So with that, we're going to conclude this portion of the webinar that's focused on presenting to you all, and we're going to open things up to questions. Again, please feel free to email me, Justin, directly at the email address listed on the screen on this slide, jmkinnovationprize@jmkfund.org, and I'll aim to get back to you within about a week. There's also more great information available on the Kaplan Fund's website, including a frequently asked questions page at jmkfund.org. So now Betsy, Diya, and I will we'll field your questions. Our team has already answered some of the popular questions in writing in chat, and we welcome you to add follow-ups to the Q&A or chat box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. I'm going to go on mute for just a second and take a sip of coffee, and I'll be right back to answer our first question.
Thanks, everybody. Rex chiming in here. I will try and serve up some questions, and I actually, Diya, I have one that maybe you can help with to start. I think a lot of folks are asking about what the technical assistance aspect of the project looks like. I know you mentioned that, and I'm sure Justin can help too, but would love to hear about your experience and then maybe what some others have done with that block of funding.
Yeah, wonderful. So I saw some questions about whether it can all be spent in the first year or, and you know, one of my really truly remarkable experiences with the fund is that it's really a co-creative, collaborative funding experience. So I always asked Justin, and he always answered and really provided as much advice as possible about, you know, what it could be used for and how to spread it out. But of course, my sense is that when you need it, you will receive it, right? And so pretty early on, we had more expenses. I think that made sense as we were setting ourselves up as a more sustainable organization. And so we got Qualtrics. We did a map that we needed funding for that platform for the map. So a lot of software licensing expenses, computers, legal fees for our lawyers as we were setting up our independent contractor forms because we were hiring more people. And so again, it was so useful because I knew that $50K a year could absolutely just stay to fund my staff member. And then these other small things that pop up, you never know from where they come up. It's like, oh yes, definitely we need to talk to a lawyer about our, you know, nonprofit status or our bylaws or whatever it is. It was really wonderful to have those funds, and it was a very easy process. I submitted requisitions and they were reimbursed at record speed.
Yeah, thanks, Diya. I mean, piggybacking on that, it's meant to be collaborative. It's meant for us to be sort of conversational and say, hey, it sounds like you need some additional dollars for this. Let's use your technical assistance funds. One caveat is we try not to plug sort of like gaps in operating budgets. So oftentimes if it's something that's like an unexpected expense, like those legal fees that Diya mentioned, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to take a lot of pride here and say we've invested in things like septic systems, scientific tools, copier printers that have failed, and even a tractor engine that failed when it was time to sow the crops of someone who's working at the intersection of farming and veterans' health. So really the sky's the limit, but not meant to sort of plug an operating cost hole in sort of a budget of an organization, but really provide like a safety net of like, hey, we know running an early stage organization is difficult. Things happen. We know that these funds are here to support you if something pops up.
Awesome, thank you. A simple one, Diya mentioned the video aspect of the application, and a number of folks asked whether that's a requirement or what the expectation is there. Could you talk a bit more about that?
I'm happy to start with this one, and then Diya, Betsy, let me know if you have any thoughts. So yes, if you move on to the second round application, so not the first round application, the second round application, which is about 15% of overall applicants, we do ask for a 1-minute informal video. I'm not kidding, folks. 50% of people just shoot videos on their phone and they're looking up their nose, and that's like perfect. We're not looking for production quality here. It's really an opportunity for you to sort of look into the screen and tell us the work that you're doing, which often is like more powerful than sort of writing out responses in a written application. So again, it is mandatory. It's in the round 2 application. It's a maximum of 1 minute, and most people do submit it by just sort of looking in the phone. But Diya, I've never had to actually do this myself. I just look at the videos. What was your experience like?
It was great because it really forced me in the best way to say what I wanted to say in less than 1 minute. And I did, create that script, and I had someone, I did not, do it myself. Someone did tape me doing it, but it was very informal. It did not take a long time, but it was a great opportunity to really try to say exactly what we wanted to say about our organization as succinctly as possible.
Rex, does that help?
Absolutely. Thank you both. One that I know we addressed already, or actually, you know what, I think one thing that's at the top of the list here, I think, and I'll cover a couple questions. A lot of folks asked about what they can expect back in terms of notes along the way. And I know folks, apply repeatedly. But then other folks asked just about like the interview process. Maybe you could talk a bit about round 2 and beyond, what folks can expect.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great series of questions. I mean, at a high level, I want to just like acknowledge this is like a philanthropic prize program that's as much art as it is science. We get over 2,000 applications for 10 awardees. Most people aren't going to win the award. So I want to say that we acknowledge that. And one way we think about this is sort of like an inverted pyramid of like the amount of effort that you all make as amazing innovators, leading nonprofit programs or mission-driven for-profit programs, and the amount of feedback that we can provide as a small staffed foundation. So if you complete the round 1 application, which we hope takes no longer than an hour, because we get over 2,000 applications and it's like me reading those, you're not going to get feedback. That being said, if you submit a round 2 application and ask for feedback, I'm absolutely happy to schedule a call and provide bespoke feedback or written responses from our reviewers or subject matter reviewers. As you get further along in the process, we're going to get to know you and your idea better, and we're going to be thinking about our network of other colleague funders and who might be well positioned to support your work in providing those introductions. I think our interview process, you might tell a little bit from today's webinar, we're like a fairly casual foundation overall. So I think like the interviews that you would have before one comes to New York are going to be casual. It's like, tell us a little bit more. And it's going to build on the questions that our reviewers leave for your application in round 1 and round 2. That's going to be the basis of our interview. When one comes to New York, the 15 finalists who meet with our trustees, it does get a little bit more formal because it is in a boardroom. Diya, I'm a little bit nervous to ask, but do you remember what your experience was like?
I do. I remember all of the interviews. I think warm and kind. Honestly, it felt very conversational and to the point. And I remember the meeting with the trustees. I was in New York at the time on a Zoom. Means we were in the same state, but obviously we were doing it on Zoom. And it was a wonderful experience. All of the experiences that I've had feel like family. And certainly when you meet the family, the trustees, it does feel like a family environment. So I will say that I've had very positive experiences.
Thanks, Diya. Rex, I hope that helps.
Definitely. Thank you. And travel is reimbursed by the fund. Just to add there, I think that's an easy one. I think a bunch of questions about eligibility, and I know, defining early stage. I think specifically, someone asked, about the definition of social justice, and I know a lot of the questions we'll get are about, do projects have to specifically focus on criminal justice reform, voter registration? What about projects that might be in 2 areas? I wonder if you could just talk a bit about the in-between.
Yeah, it's great. I would say, per the example I gave on schools from the 2019 cohort, given Diya's work and what she shared, I hope that you'll sense that the 3 funding areas that we shared are sort of like broad guidelines, and we are generally looking for things that are in relation to those topic areas. So, for example, with schools, it's addressing immigration, but it's really an education organization. The Kaplan Fund doesn't support like traditional education organizations as part of the prize. But this made all the sense in the world because the way it was unlocking educational systems processes in support of immigrant families. I'd say, big picture, if you think your work is tangential, is related to the three categories in any way, throw your hat in the ring. The reason I say that is because not only are we looking at this data, but we share our data with other grant-making entities as well. So there's no guarantee of funding, but know that it's not sort of like one and done. We do share this data with other foundations, and that has unlocked other funding. But again, the round one application, short and sweet, shouldn't take more than an hour. If you think you're eligible, I'd throw your hat in the ring. You heard us sort of like drive home ineligibility on a slide. I think we repeated them twice. Those are the things that like really probably shouldn't throw your hat in the ring. Like if you're just doing research, if you are internationally based with no impact in the United States, if you're just focused on spreading religious doctrine, these things are not related to the prize. But overall, I hope most people on today's call, if you feel like you're eligible, throw your hat in the ring. You can also shoot me an email at jmkinnovationprize@jmkfund.org, and I'm happy to give you a little bit more bespoke feedback.
Another eligibility question, I think related, a number of folks asked about the existence of a standalone organization, maybe fiscal sponsorship, and then I'll also ask if you could talk a bit about individuals versus, shared leadership, collaborative organizations.
Yeah, this is a good one.
I can catch you if I need to go back to.
Yeah, no, it's good. Like, yes to fiscal sponsorships, yes to mission-driven for-profit organizations, and even yes to applying as an individual. I think the caveat here is that we don't fund individuals. So if you apply as an individual, you would need to have an organization or a fiscal sponsor set up by the time the money goes out the door to you as an awardee. And we at the fund can help you connect with a fiscal sponsor. So again, generally speaking, throw your hat in the ring. I also saw a question from a city government agency, and I want to say, like, I think our terms and conditions don't explicitly allow that government agencies, but I would say you too, please throw your hat in the ring. And then we'd like to make these things work more than try to be exclusionary. And in terms of like individuals, partners, bring it on. So what we do is we typically don't allow more than 2 representatives from each organization to be in the cohort. That being said, we've had a number of individuals, a number of pairs, and frankly, I can think of a number of organizations off the top of my head that have up to 4 co-founders, but they did select 2 individuals to be part of the J.M.K. cohort experience, and that worked really well. So I don't know, Diya, any thoughts on that? I know you're kind of like a solo founder, but you have a team, and we've sort of included some of your teammates in other things.
Yes, absolutely. And interestingly, I mean, ICAR started at Guilford, became its own, standalone entity, but we're connected very much to Guilford. And I think the J.M.K. has been very supportive of that really deep relationship that ICAR has with Guilford College as 2 separate institutions. I am an individual founder, but yes, the fund has supported team members with outreach, with travel, with other kinds of support mechanisms to build up their skills. Yeah.
Awesome. What do you think? 2 more questions, Rex?
Yeah. I have one to repeat because it comes up quite a bit. Another eligibility question, but I think defining early stage. Someone said, we're 7.5 years old, but we have a small budget. Someone said, we feel like this is a new and exciting project, but we have a $2 million budget in a 10-year-old organization. How can we help folks that are kind of trying to make those decisions?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, the best way to define early stage for us is thinking about whether $175,000 over 3 years and the specific supports that we provide to early stage organizations, thinking about a relationship with the foundation. Do you want to be on cohort calls, meeting other individuals? Do you want site visits, people from the fund coming and getting to know you and your organization? Do you have capacity to go to an annual convening to meet other awardees? Is that something that excites you and could benefit you as an early stage organization? So I think, generally speaking, if you have millions of dollars in the bank, it's beyond early stage to us. If you're more than 4, 5, 6 years old as an organization, it's not early stage to us. but there's always exceptions. If you are a 10-year-old organization with $10 million in the bank, clearly ineligible. But if there's sort of like gray area there, I'd encourage you to throw your hat in the ring. I think, again, like our thinking is like, for example, if you're getting Ford Foundation support, you're probably too mature of an organization, because we're looking to be some of that significant first funding in to help an early stage founder sort of sustain and grow their work. We then work as sort of early stage funders to help bridge the awardees with funders that are more established, other innovation prizes, other funders. But if you're getting significant funding from established foundations, it really diminishes the value that we can bring to support you. So I hope that's specific enough, Rex. And was there another question that was tied to that?
No, that's super helpful. I think the other question, I think especially people thinking about Diya's case or within an organization, is whether folks need to be founding an organization or quote unquote spinning off, or if something that exists as a program would be eligible for the prize or potentially, yeah.
Would you reword the question for me, please?
Do organizations need to be, or do applicants need to be starting an organization in order to be thinking of themselves as eligible, whether that be a nonprofit or a social entrepreneurship?
More often than not, yes. But we have had instances where sort of like a very early founder has left and sort of a second founder has come in within sort of the first few years of an organization. And that's been successful. But generally speaking, yes, I think we're looking for founders of early stage ideas that are open to the experience of meeting other founders of early stage ideas and getting sort of the support both financially and sort of non-financially of a small family foundation based in New York. I hope that helps. Diya, anything you would add to that? I feel like maybe I'm missing the point of this question. I admit fully.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, when I describe ICAR, we started in 2015 as a program at Guilford College. We didn't become our own nonprofit until 2017. And then we're really sort of struggling under, as you know, immigrant phobic, refugee phobic policies for a while. And so for us, even though, you know, we started in 2015, we were not really our own organization until 2017 with considerable hurdles. And for us, receiving this funding was the first significant funding that we received and was incredibly empowering for us and truly a game changer. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, it would have been hard for us to receive this funding had I been an initiative at Guilford College. There's just other kind of layers there. As my own separate organization, you know, you can have a fiscal sponsor, of course, but as our own nonprofit, it was easier for us to apply and easier for us to sort of decide what to do with those funds when we receive them. I'm not sure, again, if that answers the question, but what I'm hearing is potentially the difference between a program and initiative and then an organization.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll also chime in that I think a lot of folks are asking about eligibility criteria. We will send you an email with more detail. I think by design, these are intended to be flexible. So I know there are some questions about this, but everything you've heard today will be available in writing. So don't feel the need to take down or go back to the recording to figure out exactly what qualifies for eligibility. We can make sure that that's available. It is on the website, which we'll link here, and we'll provide more links via email here too.
I feel like we can't end with a difficult question. Is there an easy question that came in that we can just knock out of the park?
I have one easy one. What are the reporting requirements?
Yes, that's a great one to end on. Thank you for that question. Our reporting requirements are super minimal. So we are checking in, like I will do phone calls with you twice per year, see how we can be helpful. We're going to see each other at these in-person convenings, but the only reporting requirements is at the end of the 3-year cycle, we ask something like 12 questions. It requires about a 2 or 3 page write-up. And we try hard for it not to be onerous. So we really think like early stage funders should not be just doing paperwork all the time. So we purposely remove those reporting requirements and push them all to the very end. And hopefully that's not more than sort of a 2-hour assignment. But there is this sort of like interaction expectation of like us meeting with you on the phone every now and again and coming to in-person convening. So Diya, I hope you don't feel like our reporting requirements have been onerous to date.
No, and in fact, I was going to say there's no reporting requirements. There
Yeah,
is that, right? But I will say, to your point about the meetings, which you see as reporting requirements, actually, that's not how I see them. So we check in every maybe 3 months. I'm trying to remember how frequently, but every time it's an opportunity for further support. So we have a conversation, you're hearing what's happening with ICAR, and then every time I say something, you say something that leads us into a direction that allows for more opportunities, that allows for just more ideas. So reporting to me suggests that I'm passively submitting information that nothing happens to it, enters a void. And for me, this is what we do, is not reporting. It is collaborative, just thinking about where we are right now in the life cycle of every campus at Refuge as an organization.
Thanks, Diya. Well, I think with that, I want to thank Rex for facilitating. I know there was like hundreds of questions that came in, so the way that you did that was like miraculous. And Diya, thank you so much for being here today. Super inspired by your work, and I hope everyone will go to the Every Campus a Refuge website to learn more about Diya's work. Betsy, I so appreciate you being willing to jump on this webinar with me and with Diya and Rex and others to sort of share more about the family's commitment to social justice and environmentalism and dedication to this prize. And for all of you that joined us today, just a huge thank you for spending your time with us. Thank you for your interest in the Innovation Prize. Thank you for the good work that you're doing to make our country better and stronger. So with that, you can always reach me at JMK Innovation Prize at jmkfund.org. I will be checking my email, and we look forward to being in touch and to reviewing your application, hopefully. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.